Hey everyone, welcome back to Humaning. I'm Clara, and I'm so grateful you're tuning in with us today. If you're new here, this is the podcast where we explore what it really means to be human mind, body, spirit, all of it. And today we're diving into a topic that's honestly become kind of a buzzword lately, but for good reason: living an anti-inflammatory life.
Hey, Clara. Hey, everyone, I'm Aaron, and yeah, I feel like anti-inflammatory is everywhere now, on food labels and wellness newsletters, even in those random ads that pop up on my phone. But when you actually dig into what inflammation means for our bodies, it's kind of wild how much it affects everything, right? I'm excited to get into this.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those things where, once you start learning about it, you see it everywhere. I remember when I first heard about inflammation, I thought it was just like when you sprain your ankle and it swells up. But then you realize there's this whole other level: chronic inflammation, just humming along under the surface for so many of us.
Exactly. And the thing is, chronic inflammation can be so sneaky. We don't always see it or feel it right away, but over time it can really wear us down. Energy, mood, even how we think. Before we really dive in, though, if you're listening and you find this conversation helpful or interesting, we'd love if you could hit that like button, subscribe, maybe share it with a friend. It really helps us keep these conversations going and grow our little humaning community.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. And truly, every bit of support means so much to us. So, maybe let's start with the basics. What actually is inflammation? Because, like I said, I used to think it just meant red and swollen. But it's so much more than that.
Yeah, so at its core, inflammation is actually a good thing. It's your body's way of protecting itself. Like if you cut your finger, your immune system sends in its little SWAT team to fight off germs and start healing. That's acute inflammation. But where it gets tricky is when your system stays on high alert all the time. Maybe because of stress, processed foods, lack of sleep, all that. That's when it turns chronic, and that's when we start running into issues.
That makes so much sense. It's almost like if you leave the lights on in your house all the time, eventually the bulbs burn out. I always think about how our bodies are these beautifully balanced systems, but chronic inflammation just kind of throws a wrench into things.
Oh, I love that analogy. And it's wild because chronic inflammation is linked to so many things: heart disease, diabetes, depression, even things like brain fog or just feeling off. I think a lot of people walk around feeling tired or achy or irritable and never realize inflammation might be part of the picture.
That's so true, and it's not about blaming ourselves, right? There are so many factors: our environment, our food, stress levels, even just modern life. I mean, I remember a few years ago I was just feeling constantly exhausted, and a friend suggested I look into anti-inflammatory foods. I was skeptical at first, but honestly, just making a few swaps made such a difference in my energy and mood.
I love that. Do you remember what some of those first swaps were?
Oh, totally. The big one was cutting back on processed snacks. I was a total granola bar junkie, and adding in more fresh veggies and honestly just color on my plate, like berries, spinach, sweet potatoes. I also started using turmeric and ginger way more, which I know are classic anti-inflammatory superstars.
Oh man, turmeric is my jam. There's actually a lot of research on curcumin, the compound in turmeric, and its anti-inflammatory effects. But even outside of specific superfoods, just eating more whole, unprocessed foods is one of the best things we can do. I had a similar experience actually. For me, it was about learning to cook more at home so I could control what was going into my meals. It's amazing how much you notice, like, wow, I feel clearer, or I'm not as sore after workouts.
Yes. And it's funny because sometimes those first steps feel intimidating, like, do I have to give up everything I love? But it can be really gentle. I still have pizza sometimes, but now maybe I'll throw some arugula on top or make a salad to go with it.
I love that. It's not about perfection, it's about making those small, sustainable changes, and food is just one piece, right? Stress is a huge driver of inflammation too. I know for me, when life gets crazy and I'm stressed out, I start feeling it in my body. Headaches, tight shoulders, even my digestion goes off.
Oh, same. There was a period last year where I was juggling way too much, barely sleeping, and I started getting these weird little flare-ups, like rashes, stomach issues. I'd never connected the dots before, but my body was basically waving a big red flag saying, "Hey, slow down."
Absolutely. The body keeps the score, as they say. I think sometimes we underestimate how healing it can be to just breathe, or go for a walk, or actually take a lunch break away from screens. I started doing 5-minute meditations in the morning, and it's wild how much more resilient I feel. Not just mentally, but physically too.
That's so encouraging to hear. And I love that you said 5 minutes because I think sometimes people imagine you have to sit on a mountain for an hour to get the benefits. But even little pauses can help. I started doing gratitude walks, where I just go outside and notice what I'm grateful for, even if it's something tiny like the way the sun feels or the sound of birds.
I'm into that. And movement in general is a huge anti-inflammatory tool, like not going crazy at the gym, but just moving your body in a way that feels good. Sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's dancing in the kitchen. It all counts. Actually, I read recently that even regular brisk walking can lower inflammation markers.
That's so cool, and it's empowering, right? Because sometimes the world of health can feel overwhelming, like there's this endless list of things you should be doing. But if you just start with 1 or 2 gentle shifts, it really adds up over time.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's also this emotional piece, like how we talk to ourselves, how we process our feelings. Chronic stress, bottled up emotions, even loneliness, all of that can keep our nervous system in this fight or flight mode. I notice when I make time to call a friend or even just journal, I feel lighter, more at ease.
That resonates so much. I've noticed that when I'm connecting with people, even if it's just a quick chat, I feel less tense. That sense of belonging or being heard. It's like a balm for the nervous system. And honestly, it's anti-inflammatory in its own way.
Yes. That's why I love that we're having these conversations, because community is medicine too. And nobody has to do this alone. We're all figuring it out together.
Definitely. And I think it's worth mentioning that everyone's body is different too. Like what works for one person might not work for another. Some people thrive on certain foods or routines, others need something totally different. It's really about tuning in and being gentle with yourself as you experiment.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's about noticing patterns like, oh, when I eat this, I feel energized. Or when I stay up late scrolling, I'm more achy the next day. Journaling can help with that, even if it's just a note on your phone.
That's such a good tip. I actually started keeping a little body journal during a stressful time just to track how I was feeling, physically and emotionally. It helped me notice things I'd never picked up on before, like if I had too much caffeine, I'd get anxious and my skin would flare up.
Oh man, caffeine is a sneaky one. It's like, I need this to survive, but then sometimes you realize it's not helping you as much as you think. I had to cut back a while ago, and I was surprised at how much calmer my body felt.
It's so interesting how interconnected everything is, what we eat, how we sleep, who we spend time with. It all matters. I wanted to ask you, Aaron, are there any anti-inflammatory habits that surprised you? Like, something you didn't expect would make a difference?
That's a great question. Honestly, sleep is the big one for me. I used to be a hardcore night owl thinking I could just power through with coffee. But once I started prioritizing real consistent sleep, like actually going to bed at the same time, making my room darker, even just skipping screens before bed, I noticed my cravings went down, my mood was better. I wasn't as sore after working out. It was like my whole system was getting a reset every night. What about you?
Oh, wow. Sleep is huge for me, too. And for me, it was learning to say no sometimes. I'm such a people pleaser, and I used to run myself ragged trying to do everything for everyone. But giving myself permission to rest, or just have a quiet evening in, was honestly life-changing. My body just felt less on edge.
That's so important. Boundaries are anti-inflammatory. I feel like we don't talk about that enough. Protecting your energy, your time, it's all part of the picture.
Yes. And I think we can get creative with it too, like finding little rituals or moments of joy. For me, that might mean lighting a candle in the evening, or making a cup of herbal tea. It's not always dramatic, but those small things help create a sense of calm.
Totally. I have this weird little ritual of putting on jazz music while I cook dinner. It just instantly chills me out. And honestly, enjoying your food, like really tasting it, not just scarfing it down in front of the TV, is an anti-inflammatory act in itself. Mindful eating, you know?
Oh yes, mindful eating is so underrated. I used to eat lunch at my desk while working, and I'd barely remember what I'd eaten. Now, even if it's just 10 minutes, I try to sit down, breathe, and really enjoy it. It makes such a difference.
For sure. And it's all connected. When we slow down, our body can actually digest and absorb nutrients better, which feeds back into the whole inflammation thing. It's like all these little habits stack up.
I love that. And for anyone listening who feels overwhelmed, I want to say, you don't have to do it all at once. Just pick one thing that feels doable, maybe adding a veggie to dinner or taking a few deep breaths before bed. That's enough to start.
Yes, absolutely. And there's no finish line, right? We're all learning as we go. I still have days where I eat too much sugar or binge watch shows late at night. It's not about being perfect. It's about coming back to what feels good again and again.
That's such a compassionate way to look at it. And sometimes, honestly, pleasure is anti-inflammatory too. Like laughing with friends, listening to music you love, petting your dog. Those things matter just as much as what's on your plate.
I love that. Laughter as medicine is real. Actually, did you know there's research showing that laughter can reduce stress hormones and even lower markers of inflammation? So, watching a funny movie or goofing around with your kids is legit self-care.
That's amazing. I'm going to use that as an excuse to watch more comedies. But really, it's such a reminder that healing and living an anti-inflammatory life doesn't have to be all serious and strict. It can be playful, creative, joyful.
Absolutely. I think that's the spirit of this whole conversation, finding what works for you, being gentle with yourself, and weaving in those habits that help your body feel safe, calm, and nourished.
I love that. Help your body feel safe. That really resonates. I think a lot of us, without realizing it, live in this low-key state of tension all the time. Part of an anti-inflammatory life for me is just letting my body know it's okay to relax, that it doesn't have to be in defense mode. Sometimes that looks like stretching in the morning or just putting my hand on my heart and taking a breath.
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of us forget that our bodies are listening to everything, right? Not just the food and the movement, but the way we talk to ourselves. I've caught myself before, like rushing around and thinking, I have to get this done, I have to be better, and my body just tenses up. Now I try to notice that and talk to myself like I would a friend, like, hey, you're doing great. Let's take a second.
That's beautiful. It really is about being your own ally. Actually, I remember this one moment. I was having a super stressful week, and I was just berating myself for not eating perfectly. And then a friend reminded me, you can't heal a stressed-out body with more stress. That really shifted something for me. I let go a bit, and immediately I felt lighter.
That's so powerful. Sometimes the pressure to be healthy can ironically make us more stressed out. I think that's why it helps to be curious rather than judgmental. Like, how do I feel after this meal, instead of, ooh, I messed up. That curiosity opens up so much more room for growth and self-compassion.
Absolutely. And when it comes to food, I've noticed that when I approach it with curiosity, I end up discovering little things that really work for me. For example, I found that swapping out certain oils, like using olive oil or avocado oil instead of vegetable oil, made a difference in how I felt. And it wasn't a huge, overwhelming change.
Oh, that's a great tip. The type of fat we eat really matters. Olive oil is loaded with these anti-inflammatory compounds called polyphenols, and it's a staple in Mediterranean diets which have been linked to lower rates of chronic disease. And honestly, making those little swaps over time adds up. Sometimes I'll just roast a big tray of vegetables with olive oil, garlic, and herbs, and that's my meal prep for the week.
That sounds delicious. And it's so doable. I think sometimes people get intimidated by all the information out there. There's keto, paleo, vegan, gluten-free. It gets overwhelming. But honestly, just focusing on more plants, good fats, and less processed stuff, that's a huge step already.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated, and if there's one thing I always come back to, it's eat more colors. The deeper the color, the more antioxidants, like berries, leafy greens, purple cabbage, even carrots. It's almost like nature's way of flagging what's good for us.
I love the eat the rainbow idea. It makes meals more fun, too. And I actually find that when I pay attention to color and freshness, I don't crave the heavy, processed foods as much. It's like my body starts to crave the good stuff.
Totally. And it's the same with movement, I think. The more you find something you actually enjoy, the more you crave it. Some people love running, others love swimming or dancing. For me, it's hiking. There's just something about being in nature that resets everything for me, body and mind.
Oh, hiking is such a good one. There's actual research, too, about how being in nature, like just walking in the woods, can lower inflammation. It's called forest bathing in Japan. Even just sitting in a park for 20 minutes can help. I love how accessible that is.
Yeah, and even if you're in a city, just getting outside, seeing some green, feeling the sun, it makes a difference. I used to think self-care had to be this big thing, like a fancy spa day, but honestly, sitting on a bench in the sun is sometimes all I need.
That's so true. And I think there's something to be said for routine, too, creating little daily rituals that bring you back to yourself. For me, having a morning routine, just making tea, stretching, taking a few breaths, sets the tone for my whole day. Even if things get stressful later, I feel more grounded.
I hear you. My morning routine is super simple. Just some stretches, a glass of water, and a moment to set an intention for the day. It's not fancy, but it's my anchor. And I think having those anchors, those touch points, can help us weather the storms of life with a little more resilience.
I love that. Anchors. And I think, too, it's about resilience, not rigidity. Life is unpredictable. There are always going to be curveballs. But if we have these little habits and tools, we can come back to balance more easily, instead of spiraling.
Exactly. And, sometimes, despite our best efforts, we still get sick or have flare-ups. That's just being human. I think what matters is how we respond. Do we beat ourselves up, or do we offer ourselves some grace? I used to get frustrated when my body didn't cooperate, and now I try to see it as information. Like, okay, what's my body asking for right now?
That's such a compassionate approach, and I've found that when I meet my body with kindness instead of criticism, it's almost like my symptoms soften. Even pain or discomfort feels less intense when I'm not fighting myself.
Absolutely. And sometimes reaching out for support is part of the process. Whether it's talking to a friend, seeing a therapist, or just connecting with a community like this one, it reminds us we're not alone. Healing can be a team sport.
Yes, and I think that sense of connection is so important, especially when we're struggling. Even just hearing someone else say, "me too," can be so validating. I hope people listening today feel that, like, we're all in this together.
For sure. And, hey, if you're enjoying this conversation, we'd love for you to let us know. Leave a comment, share your own experience, or just say hi. And if you haven't already, subscribing really helps us keep the podcast going and growing. We genuinely love hearing from you.
We really do. And I think before we wrap up, maybe we can each share one practical tip for anyone wanting to start living a more anti-inflammatory life in a gentle, approachable way.
Oh, I love that. Okay, mine would be start with one small change and make it easy. Maybe it's adding a handful of spinach to your smoothie or swapping your afternoon soda for herbal tea. Don't try to overhaul everything, just one thing, and notice how you feel.
That's great. For me, I'd say, give yourself permission to rest. Even 5 minutes of quiet, or just lying down and breathing deeply, can be so nourishing. You don't have to earn rest by being productive. Sometimes the most anti-inflammatory thing you can do is simply pause.
That's beautiful. And maybe as a bonus, try to bring a little joy into each day. Something that makes you laugh, or that sparks a sense of wonder or gratitude. That's healing too.
Yes? And if you're listening and you try any of these tips, let us know how it goes. We love hearing your stories and learning with you.
And remember, there's no one right way to do this. Your anti-inflammatory life might look totally different from someone else's, and that's okay. The point is to tune in, be gentle, and keep exploring.
Exactly. Healing isn't linear, and it doesn't have to be lonely. We're all just humaning together.
Well said, Clara. I think that's a perfect place to start winding down. Thank you all so much for listening today, for being part of our humaning community, and for showing up for yourselves.
Yes, thank you, truly. If you enjoyed this conversation, we'd be so grateful if you'd like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a little extra support or inspiration today. Your energy and kindness help us keep going.
And don't forget, you can always leave us a comment or reach out on social. We love connecting and hearing your thoughts, what's worked for you, what you're struggling with, or even just your favorite anti-inflammatory recipe.
Yes, please share your stories and tips. We learn so much from each other, and no matter where you are on your journey, remember you're exactly where you need to be.
We'll be back soon with more conversations about being human, messy, beautiful, complicated, and real. Take care of yourselves and each other.
Sending lots of love. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for being here.